They call you cold, detached, emotionless. But they never saw the storm it took to silence your rage. You were not born like this. You were burned into it. When others played, you watched. When they chased applause, you studied the silence. Because deep inside you knew the world does not reward the loud, it obeys the unreadable. And you're not here to be liked. You're here to rise like a shadowed monarch forged in mental war. This is not motivation, it is a reckoning, the philosophy of power, sharpened by suffering. Nietzsche didn't teach men to cope. He taught them to become the kind of soul that commands fate. This is your path, to think like a cold king, or remain ruled by the noise. They don't tell you this, but the crown, it's not handed to you. It's carved alone, in silence, not in applause, not in comfort, not in the soft circle of men pretending to be kings bragging about battles they've never bled in. A real king isn't crowned in public, he's forged in private. No audience, no praise, just the quiet war inside his own skull. A battlefield most men avoid because silence is a mirror. And when you strip the noise, when you take away the constant drip of distractions, when you sever the IV of dopamine that most men call a life, you meet him. The version of you that's been hiding. And he's not noble. Not yet. He's fractured, angry, weak in places, loud in others. But he's real, and that's where the crown begins. Not with confidence but confrontation. Because most men will never face themselves. They flinch at quiet like a wolf flinches at fire. They scroll, they drink, they talk. God, how they talk about dreams they'll never chase and wars they'll never start. Because chasing silence means facing the truth. And most of them know. Deep down they've built their life on lies too fragile to hear their own heartbeat. But not you. You came here to burn the lies down. So go silent. Not for peace. For war. Because silence isn't calm, it's confrontation. It's your shadows rising without warning. It's your addictions whispering back. It's your regrets crawling to the surface like ghosts denied burial. It's the voice of your father, the betrayal of your past, the woman who left you bleeding but smiling. It's all of it, and it's real. That's why you sit for 60 minutes in silence. No phone, no music, no stimulation, just a man and his mind. That's the silent hour drill, and it's not spiritual, it's strategic. You're not meditating. You're extracting intel from the deepest recesses of your psyche. You're pulling secrets out of the shadows with bloody hands and cold eyes. Because to rule you must know yourself, every fracture, every fault, every fear. This isn't self-love. This is self-mastery. You record what surfaces. You take notes on the battlefield. You map the terrain of your trauma, your cravings, your cowardice. Because you can't conquer what you refuse to confront. And when the hour ends, when the dust settles, something ancient stirs in you. Not noise, not chaos. Something colder, calmer, control. You start to move like a man who's met his monsters and made them kneel. You speak less. You watch more. You act with precision. Not panic. You become a ghost in the herd. Observing, waiting, building. Because silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Noise is the weapon of the herd, of the addict, the pleaser. The man who chases purpose like it's hiding in applause. But a king, he's forged in silence because he knows nothing pure is built in noise. Empires rise in shadow. Legacies are written in blood, not buzz. So the next time the world screams for your attention, don't answer. Withdraw. Vanish. Go dark. Let them wonder. Let them gossip about your quiet. Let them invent stories to fill your absence. And while they talk, you train. While they chase dopamine, you build discipline. While they scroll, you sharpen. Until one day the silence ends, and you return. Not as a boy pretending, but as a cold king. One who doesn't need to prove anything. One who doesn't beg for validation. One who speaks only when the words are heavier than the silence they replace. Because in a world addicted to noise, the man who commands silence rules. So crown yourself not with gold but with scars. Earned in solitude. Sit on your throne of discipline. Build your empire in the shadows. Trust nothing but your own two hands. And remember, the herd fears the man who disappears. but they bow to the one who returns. They're trained to beg for it, like dogs waiting for a pat on the head. Approval, understanding, softness. But sympathy doesn't sharpen a man, it softens him. It teaches him to chase rescue instead of responsibility, to weep for comfort instead of standing in the fire and forging something colder. The truth is simple and brutal. Sympathy is a weapon, and you've been using it on yourself. Every time you vent, every time you fold, every time you tell your story to be heard. Not to heal. You're not healing. You're hiding. You're asking to be saved. But no one's coming. Not in the way you want. Not in the way you need. You're not a boy anymore. The tears don't bring someone running. The breakdown doesn't summon a savior, just echoes. Quiet, cold, unseen. And that silence. That's not cruelty. That's your call to become something else. You see, most men are addicted to being understood. Addicted to someone saying, yeah, I get it. But understanding doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you see, and being seen isn't power. So for 30 days follow the no rescue rule. No venting, no sympathy seeking, no comfort. Let the suffering speak only to you. Lock it in, let it echo, let it burn through the fake layers you built to be palatable, likable. Because when the only person you turn to is yourself, you learn something terrifying. You learn how weak you've made yourself, chasing warmth instead of war. But you also learn something else. That pain, it's not the enemy. It's the sharpening stone, the grindstone for your identity. The numbness you feel sometimes. That hollowness, that's not failure. That's the beginning of control. It's when your emotions stop controlling you. It's when your nervous system realizes panic won't save you. Rage won't save you. Tears won't save you. Only movement will. Only clarity. Only power. Power bought through presence, not pity. You'll start to move differently. Not cold, but clean. A man who no longer bleeds emotionally on everyone around him. A man who doesn't look for shoulders to cry on, but for mountains to climb. A man who does not scream his pain, but transmutes it into stillness. You think being emotionally numb means something's wrong. It doesn't. It means the storm has passed, and the warrior remains. And when someone offers you that old drug again, you okay? Wanna talk about it, you'll feel it. That urge to lean back into the softness, but you won't. Because softness doesn't rebuild a man, silence does. So you sit with the pain, you let it whisper, you listen. Not to react but to understand. You start ruling. You don't need them to get you. You don't need them to comfort you. You don't even need to be seen anymore. Because kings don't need sympathy. They need discipline. They need solitude. They need suffering, sharpened into strategy. And every time you resist the need to be rescued, you build a brick in the castle of your own soul. Quiet, heavy, strong. This is how numbness becomes a weapon. Not to kill your heart, but to guard it. Because emotions ungoverned are chaos, but emotions restrained, that's control. And control is sovereignty. So stop explaining. Stop begging to be understood. Stop leaking. Let the pain speak, but only to you. And when it does, don't respond. Just nod. Just build. Because the man who needs no sympathy is the one the world can't manipulate. He doesn't bend. He doesn't beg. He becomes. So bury the boy who wanted comfort. Let him go. And in his place, let the king rise in silence, with no rescue and no regret. It crowns the loudest voice, the fastest reaction, the most fragile outrage dressed up as bravery. It feeds on impulse like wolves on blood. Every second, another man devoured. Not by others, but by himself, his temper, his cravings, his need to be heard, felt. But in this storm of feelings, the throne does not belong to the man who feels the most. It belongs to the one who feels least. Not because he's hollow, because he's sharp, because he's learned that cold logic is the last weapon they cannot steal. That to survive this age, to dominate it, you cannot move like prey. You must move like a shadow, silent, intentional, sovereign. Most men are ruled by their own wiring. Pavlovian, predictable. They bark when insulted. They run when afraid. They boast when praised. Tell me, how can you rule when any fool can push a button and summon your rage, your panic, your tears? If you can be emotionally read, you can be emotionally ruled. This is the war now. Not guns, not fists, but emotional warfare. And most men, they walk into it unarmored, untrained, They confuse instinct with impulse, but instinct is ancient, tactical. Impulse is weakness pretending to be power. Instinct tells a wolf when to wait. Impulse makes the dog bark at shadows, so you must learn to sit still, even when your blood screams. Especially, that's what makes a king cold. Not detached from emotion but disciplined with it. He doesn't suppress his fire, he chambers it, uses it only when it serves, burns only when it breaks the enemy. He doesn't speak first, he lets the room bleed silence. Until every eye turns to him. He doesn't argue, he observes, and when he responds, he moves like a blade. You want to change your life? Master the pause. In conflict, give them 5 seconds of silence. Don't speak, don't blink, don't break. Watch what happens. Their fire loses oxygen, their frame cracks. They begin to wonder what you're thinking. And that is the first fracture in their control, because stillness is terrifying in a world addicted to noise. The mirror strategy. 5 seconds of silence in the storm is not passive, it's psychological pressure. It reveals who's in control, and you'll start to see it everywhere. The man who yells is losing. The man who chases is forgotten. The man who reacts is played. But the man who watches, calculates, endures, strikes once. When the strike is fatal, you want respect, earn it in silence. You want peace, win it through power. Because in the end the cold king doesn't kill emotion. He just no longer serves it. He makes it serve him. He weeps only when no one watches. He rages only in private. Where the walls don't bleed information, he feels deeply, but he acts deliberate, because dominance in the modern world doesn't require violence. It requires control, of self, of reaction, of narrative, and the man who can sit in the fire, without flinching, without blinking, without begging to be understood, is the man they'll never see coming. But never forget, let them scream, let them storm. You, stay still, because storms don't fear thunder, they fear silence. Pain is not your enemy, it is your entrance fee. Every man who wants to rise must bleed first, not because the world demands it, but because the throne. Suffering isn't a punishment, it's a right. You don't become something greater without first dying to what you were. And the death, it's slow, silent, ugly. There's no applause, no warning, just a crack. Quiet splitting through your chest when the world says, you're not enough. Most men run from that moment. They distract, they numb, they fold. But a few, they let it break them, on purpose, because they know the truth. You do not become powerful by avoiding pain. You become powerful by absorbing it. Letting it crush every version of you that was never built to last. Every scar you carry is proof that you stayed, that you didn't flee, that you didn't beg, that you didn't shatter when it got quiet. When it got dark, when it got real. Look closely. Your scars are hieroglyphs, carved into you, by time, by betrayal, by grief, by your own hand. They tell a story, not of suffering, but of survival, of evolution, but only if you read them right, because too many men treat their scars like shame. They hide them, they apologize for them, they try to explain them to people who will never understand, but the world doesn't need to understand. It was never supposed to carry your pain. That was your weight, your war, your crucible, and your transformation. So stop chasing sympathy for the wounds you earned in silence. They are not weaknesses, they are codes, etched in blood, in tears you never cried in front of anyone, in nights you sat on the floor and decided no one's coming. So I have to become him. That version of you, the one that kept walking when the others collapsed. That's the man who wears scars like armor. He doesn't talk about his pain, he walks like he's made of it. There's a difference. When you walk into a room, don't lead with your story. Let them feel the gravity, because a scarred man who stayed silent speaks louder than a broken one who never shut up. You want a tactic? Take inventory. 5 scars, 5 crucibles, and for each one extract the power. What did it cost you, and what did it give you? A breakup that shattered your identity? It showed you how fragile your identity was. A betrayal by someone you trusted? Good. It forced you to trust yourself. The humiliation, the failure, the nights you wished it would all just stop? Good. They taught you how to breathe underwater. These aren't just wounds, they're warnings to the weak and weapons for the willing. Scars don't fade, they harden, and so must you. Don't let the world convince you healing means erasing the past. Healing means owning it, sharpening it, using it to cut through the lies you used to live by. You're not a victim of your pain, you're the architect it created. The man you are now exists because the boy you were bled for him. Don't apologize for that. Don't explain it. Just nod. Let them wonder why you're so calm in chaos, why your eyes don't flinch when others panic, why your voice stays low when theirs shake. It's because you've already died once, and the man who's died before doesn't fear fire. He becomes it. A leash around your neck, handed to you by those who never built anything worth protecting. This world doesn't punish cruelty. It punishes weakness wearing the mask of morality. And most men, they don't fall because they're too aggressive. They fall because they're too merciful. With their own excuses, they let their comfort speak louder than their hunger. They protect the parts of themselves that should have been killed off years ago. The parts that crave praise. The parts that seek fairness. The parts that flinch when the pressure rises. But a king, he does not protect what makes him soft. He sacrifices it. Ruthlessness isn't about hurting others. It's about refusing to betray your potential. It's the silent war you declare on mediocrity. Not in others, in yourself. Because let's tell the truth, you know what's holding you back. It's not the world, not the haters, not your trauma. It's the 5-second delay between your decision and your discipline. It's the fact that you still need motivation that you still want to be liked by people who've never built anything. That's the betrayal. That's the crime. You're not lazy. You're merciful with your mediocrity. You keep it alive. You feed it. You make deals with it. But you don't negotiate with weakness. You dominate every day. Before 9 a.m., you stack the kills. That's your domination list. 3 non-negotiables. 1 for the body, 1 for the mind, 1 for the mission. Not complicated, not flashy, just brutal, precise, essential. Wake up and do what weak men won't, before the world has a chance to distract you, before your old self wakes up and whispers comfort in your ear. Because the truth is, if you're not feared by your former self, you haven't grown. Not really. You still tolerate softness. You still explain your discipline. You still ask for understanding from people who've never walked through fire. But ruthlessness, it's quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't post about the grind. It just moves with cold precision. It cuts off dead weight. It deletes distractions without ceremony. It walks away from comfort. Like a king steps over the bodies of those who doubted him. You want to evolve? Kill the version of you that hesitates. You want power? Deny yourself the luxury of approval. You want freedom? Let go of the need to be gentle with your own decay. Ruthlessness is not cruelty, it's clarity. The ability to see your potential clearly, and cut away everything that insults it, even if it's a part of you, especially if it's a part of you. So look in the mirror. Not for affirmation, but for confrontation. Ask yourself, what part of me is still soft? What habit? What fear? What excuse am I feeding in silence? What am I protecting that's actually poisoning me? And then destroy it, without apology, without delay. Because men who are ruthless with their evolution don't need revenge. They become it. They told you to be good, to be nice, to stay soft, to keep your voice calm, to tame your anger, hide your hunger, bury your darkness. They taught you to fear it. But power is not born in light. It's forged in your shadow. The part of you you've been trained to suppress. The fire, the rage, the wild hunger to take. That's not your enemy. That's your edge. And every time you deny it, you become weaker, more domesticated, more palatable, more predictable. They want you manageable. Because a man who has tamed his shadow is sovereign. But a man who denies it is a slave. You are not pure, and that is your strength. You were born with violence in your veins, with ambition curled in your gut like a sleeping wolf, and you've spent years trying to kill it, to silence it, to pretend it's not there. Why? Because you thought being dangerous made you broken. But the truth, the most dangerous men in the world are the most grounded, because they've met their shadow. And they didn't they shook its hand, they gave it orders. Your shadow is not chaos, it's command. If you control it, aggression, without shame, dominance, without guilt, ambition, without apology. You've been told these things make you toxic, but repression is the real poison. Because what you bury doesn't die, it festers, it mutates, it becomes a ticking bomb under your smile, a storm disguised as serenity. You want to be whole,
then walk into your own darkness, and don't close your eyes. See it clearly. Every violent impulse, every jealous instinct, every surge of desire to win, take break. Don't run from it. Don't moralize it. Study it. Because until you know your demons, they lead you. But once you lead them, they become soldiers. Loyal, strategic, precise. The man who owns his shadow becomes unpredictable, not chaotic, controlled. He doesn't explode. He calculates. He doesn't suppress his rage. He harnesses it like fire beneath steel. That's where the cold king rises, not from sainthood, but from integration. He is not the man who denies his darkness. He's the one who commands it. And when conflict comes, when pressure mounts, he doesn't crack because he has already faced the chaos within. Most men lose not because they are weak, but because they are fragmented. They are divided between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. But not you, not anymore. You will sit with your shadow, you will listen, and you will say these words every morning, every night, until they're etched into your spine. I do not fear my darkness, I lead it. Because the man who masters his shadow doesn't beg for peace, he imposes it. But a quiet, sacred violence, the act of choosing power before the world wakes. Because every man is born with instinct, the urge to consume, to chase, to feel, but without discipline, he's just flesh, reacting, pulsing, begging for Nietzsche said it plain. A man without discipline is no different than a beast, and yet, look around. How many men confuse chaos with freedom? How many chase dopamine, call it purpose, and rot while pretending it's growth? They call it balance, you call it betrayal. Because when you see discipline for what it truly is, you stop treating it like punishment. You start treating it like a crown, not because it's hard, but because it's holy. The cold king rises with ritual. Not mood, not motivation, but decision. He does not negotiate with fatigue. He does not wait for inspiration. He moves with clarity, forged through repetition. Discipline is not a grind, it's a ceremony. It's the first swing of the sword before the enemy sees you coming. That's the first blade rule. The first action of your day must serve your vision. No delay, no doubt, domination. Immediately, because that first act sets the tone, not just for the morning, for your mind. You teach yourself every day what kind of man you are, and if your first decision is weakness, distraction, comfort, then the rest of the day already belongs to someone else. But if your first move is fire, the workout, the deep work, the mission, then you walk into the day as the king, not the subject. Because kings don't answer to clocks, they answer to vision, and the difference is everything. Most men wake up reacting, scrolling, think, dragging themselves out of bed like sleep is some holy excuse. But not you. You rise like the blade is already in your hand, not to prove, but to practice. Discipline isn't about showing off, it's about sharpening quietly, when no one's watching, when no one will clap, when no one cares. It's the sacred vow you make in the dark, that you will not betray yourself today, that you will not serve impulse, that you will not abandon the war for momentary warmth. Because if you can't command yourself, you'll never command anything else. You'll always be ruled by mood, by fear, by delay. But the cold king, he's not fast, he's not loud, he's consistent. And in a world chasing chaos, that makes him lethal. Every day he sharpens, every day he repeats, every day he bows to discipline and rises in power. Because reverence creates rule. So tomorrow, before the world speaks, make the first move, the hardest one, the one that hurts. Choose it first, because the man who swings the first blade doesn't need to block. Power isn't something you chase, it's something you become. Not through status, not through applause, but through absolute command of your breath, your shadow, your silence. The cold king doesn't seek the throne, he becomes the throne, because he no longer needs to win. He is the win. He doesn't react, he doesn't flinch. He moves with the weight of a man who has buried every weaker version of himself. That's the will to rule, not to rule over others, but to rule within, to kill the chaos before it speaks, to hear the whisper of fear and answer with stillness, to lead your demons instead of denying them, to crucify your comfort before it crucifies your purpose. And this is the final test. Can you stop asking for permission to be powerful? Can you let go of being relatable, being soft, being sick. Can you stand alone? Without a pat on the back, without a cheering crowd, without the echo of validation, because a king walks alone. He does not announce his strength, he reveals it. Through control, through restraint, through presence, every room he enters bends subtly to his fray, not because he's loud, but because he's quiet. Stillness terrifies the weak, and you've come too far to collapse now. You've walked the shadow, you've torn the mask off your softness, you've killed the addiction to sympathy, to noise, to need. Now all that remains is fire, the kind of fire that doesn't burn for attention, the kind that builds empires in silence. You're not here to feel good, you're here to dominate your nature, to rewrite your program, to create a man so dangerous, so complete, so unapologetically sovereign, that nothing external can touch him. Not rejection, not betrayal, not loss, because you don't need the world to give you anything. You are the source now. You no longer wake up waiting for clarity. You wake up commanding it. You no longer ask, how do I feel? You ask what must be done, and you do it, without delay, without debate. This is the final evolution. You are not here to be liked by the world. You are here to be feared by the version of yourself that used to flinch. You've stopped asking for comfort, because comfort is for those who still hope someone else will save them. You save yourself in silence every single day. So if you've seen your darkness, lead. If you found your weakness, crucify it. If you still beg for warmth, you're not ready. But if you feel nothing except clarity, if you can look in the mirror and know the war is inside, and that's exactly where you want it. If your path is silent, brutal, and yours alone, then comment one word: forged, because kings are not born, they're built in the dark.